Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 260. I was white here, kicked off with c4, the English opening, which I haven't played for a while. And by a funny coincidence, shortly after I recorded this game, someone actually requested it for me to play an English opening, So a happy coincidence. So the chess engine doesn't like English openings. I've noticed this in the past. So it immediately gives black equality with the e5, which a lot of people play. I've seen that a lot. Although it's not the most popular move. What I play myself is usually a knight f6. It's a little bit of a more flexible move. You kind of wait to see what white's setup is, and you can go into your ordinary moves after d4. You can do what you normally do against a queen's pawn opening. Or if he goes for the fianchetto, then you can mirror that in a lot of different possibilities. And of course, you can always still play e5 at a later time, unless he plays knight f6 immediately to prevent it, which I suppose is possible. Knight f3, I mean. But my opponent played e5 here. And yeah, you get this set up a lot. I played g3, also the second choice. I guess knight c3 is slightly more popular. But these are all about the same. So what is the engine thinking here? Knight f6, bishop c5. Yeah, all reasonable moves. Knight c6 is, well, again, it's the second choice. Maybe knight f6 is a little more popular. My plan is to put pieces that influence the light squares. So the knight here also hits these squares. So the light squares in the center are going to be kind of a battleground in this opening. And so that's why knight f6 is logical, just to immediately try to counter some of that pressure. But knight c6 is playable. And I go bishop g2, my plan. I could also go knight c3 here as well. And then my opponent plays b6. So let's see what the main move here is. g6. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I wouldn't have picked g6 as a top choice myself. Seems a little weird to fianchetto black's dark squared bishop when it's going to be hitting this e-pawn. Not like that. If the bishop comes here, it'll just be hitting on the e-pawn. So seems a bit strange. But chess engine likes knight f6. That makes sense to me. And or bishop c5. Coming out here with the bishop. Okay, my opponent played b6. And let's just get away from the opening book. We're out of it. And I just continue my normal development, knight c3. And you'll see that actually the evaluation has changed back to where it's sort of a normal opening advantage for white. And this happens in a lot of lines in the English, that the chess engine is skeptical at first, rates it as about even, but somehow there's still some long-term advantage to white. And if you play on a few moves, you get typically, you end up once again with your typical opening advantage in the evaluation of the chess engine. So bishop b7, knight f3, normal moves. He can't play e5 at this point to discomfort my knight because it's protected, but he might, in fact he does play that later. I just castle. I want to protect this bishop with my king that way. So that if this diagonal ever opens, this knight won't be pinned, be free to move. And I intended, once you play c5 or c4 rather, you pretty much intend to castle kingside anyway. Okay, knight f6. Now it is possible for black to consider moves like e5. I play e3 here, and he goes bishop e7, and then I continue on with d4. So this is building up a big center with the English. It's maybe a little bit funny because these are on dark squares and locking in this bishop. But if there's a trade here, this bishop will come out and be a strong piece. And if there's no trade, then maybe the bishop has a life along one of these diagonals. So it's all good so far. So the engine is recommending queen c8 for black or castling. He played a mistake here, d4. And this just loses a pawn. And so I go ahead and grab it. Now he tries to hold on to it for a move, but this doesn't really accomplish that. So I take back. I don't want to leave my knight hanging here, of course. I have to take back with the g knight. And now he played knight takes c3. Okay, that's one of the choices there. And I have a choice between taking back with the pawn or the knight, and it was a hard choice. I guess taking back with the knight is looking a little better in retrospect. You still get these two pawns in the center. The knight on c3 supports the e pawn, so you could push it to e4 and liberate this bishop. After I do this, which is the way I took in the game, now this bishop is just a little bit harder to to develop. So I've kind of created some problems for myself, but I am a pawn up, so I still have the advantage in this situation. So the game continues, knight a5, and I didn't want to allow him to clamp down on this c5 square. So I immediately put my queen to e2, and I'm thinking of pushing the move c4, rather, the c4 square. I'm already thinking of pushing this pawn to c4, and then maybe this pawn to d5 to give some life to this bishop, make some sense of it. Okay, my opponent played rook e8, and I continue with knight d2. Yeah, I didn't want this knight to be subject to a discovered attack. So bishop takes g2 was played, getting rid of the light squared bishops, which often happens when both sides fianchetto like that. Sort of like the same situation when there's a single open file in a symmetrical pawn structure, and both sides tend to put their rooks on the open file and then they get exchanged off. So that's one way to reduce material, is to always counter the open files, to create open files and open lines and then put your pieces on them. Anyway, of course, it's just good strategy to put your pieces on open lines. In case your opponent doesn't oppose them, then you've got a good lot of options for your pieces. Okay, bishop f6 was played here. Just trying to, once again, counter the bishops. So the two bishops are staring at each other through these pawns. I get my knight back to a more normal square. Although the engine likes the e4 immediately here. I probably should have given more consideration to that. While the knight is still here supporting e4, why not just push that and take over a little more control of the center? Knight f3, knight b7, and c4. But yeah, I was continuing with my idea of just having this kind of structure and then maybe pushing on with d5 later. But he plays c5 immediately. I guess that was the other reason why I played this move, knight to f3, was so my queen could defend the bishop. Because I was imagining already playing c4 and d5, and then I realized that would be a problem. So c5 kind of forces the issue I don't really want to take here, so I push on with d5, and we get this exchange. And through all this, well, I've got the extra pawn still, and I maintained an advantage. But things start to change in a few moves. He gets active with his rook, but well, so far so good. I chase the rook back and play e4, so I've got a bit of a stronger center, but at the same time, a bigger center, I mean, but not stronger. This is actually kind of a weakness here, and I play f3 to support it, so I guess that is an engine-approved move. Maybe I should have considered rook e1, though. I don't know. One of those rooks to e1. Because he plays f5 immediately to kind of undermine my center, and I'm starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable here. I went rook c e1. And then he went queen a4, trying to come around this way. So maybe rook fe1 was a little bit more accurate. This pawn is hanging over here, and I don't like the pin on the e-pawn. So I decided to give up. And it's interesting, the engine approves of this. I decided to give up the a-pawn. Well, maybe there's no good way to defend it. If I try to move the knight, for example, to defend this way, then he can just take. Or if I move my rook over, he can just take. So I guess I'm losing a pawn already in this situation. So it's just a question of how I want to lose the pawn. And so queen d3 is actually a good move here because it gets out of the pin and gives me a little bit of flexibility here. He takes, queen takes a2. And then rook f2 is recommended by the engine. Just you want to unpin this knight. I played rook e2. Not quite as accurate. Although not clear why. Maybe because rook f2, the rook is protected by the king there. Anyway, yeah, rook e2 was played, queen b2. And now rook f to e1, just lining up here, so I have the option of taking a pawn. Queen goes back to f6 to hold on to his rooks. And now Engine is recommending something other than what I played. I was kind of stuck for ideas at this point. It likes e takes f5 as a way of just clarifying things. But I guess I was still hoping for some advantage. E takes f5, removes a lot of force from the board, and it probably turns out to be pretty even. The other idea from the Engine is just king to g1, retreating. Or rook to e3, maybe a slight improving move. Okay, but I played the move queen a3 here, hitting the a pawn, and just trying to get my queen active, and I figured these pieces could hold off, and maybe if I get my queen in here, I could start making some threats against his back rank, because the exchanges here would lift a rook off of his back rank. So he continued on with f4, good move. And I push on with e5, not the best move. So what, rook f2 once again? I guess I need to kind of stand pat in this position. Queen a1 even, encouraging an exchange of queens. I didn't think I wanted to exchange queens in this situation, because these pawns on the outside will become very dangerous in an endgame. Okay, so I pushed on with e5, and now this is just an even position. So I've given up whatever advantage I have. So it's interesting, I retain some advantage even after giving back the a-pawn. So material is even, but with this move now, the game is even, according to the chess engine. So we get this exchange, that's probably why it's even. Queen. And now I should go ahead and take the a-pawn here to maintain equality. I need to take that, actually. So what I kind of overlooked is that he's got this check here, so that wins a piece. And so why is queen takes a7 even playable? Here, let's show. Oh, here, actually, let's cancel that. That's maybe a tactics puzzle for you if you want a minute to think about it. How come it's safe to play queen takes a7 here and doesn't lose the knight? Well, that may be a misleading way of of expressing it. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away anyway. So if I play there, and if he goes for the knight check, the check to pick up the knight, so say I move my king to h3, and he grabs the knight, I have this check. And so he moves, and then I pick up the knight. And so what's happened here? It's still 5 pawns to 5 pawns. The Engine likes white a little bit. It's black's turn to move. F takes g3. Queen e6 check. I guess I get some checks, and maybe I can pick up another pawn or something. Anyway, pretty interesting game with just queens and pawns on the board. We get into a queen and pawn endgame later. Okay, so I didn't see that, and I play queen d3, protecting my knight, and now black can just win the game here with the move queen e3. And I kind of noticed this after I'd made the move. But queen e3 is really good. I don't want to take. If I take, his pawn comes here hitting my knight. And where's my knight going? So knight b1. How about knight b3? Knight takes c4. Supports his pawn. So yeah, the pawn's not queening, but he's got a dangerous passed pawn here, and he's got also all these pawns on the queen side. So this is a position that's just winning for black. So I can't take the queen. If I want to hold on, I play queen c2, and then he's got a5, and now these pawns start marching, and it looks like this is a winning advantage because of his dominant queen position here. So anyway, that would have been the way for black to win the game. Instead, after queen d3, he played the move f takes g3, and now suddenly it goes back into the range of about even. I take back, and he plays g6. So we were both getting a little low on time, so it gets hard to find those accurate moves. You have to kind of search around to find the best move. And as your time gets short, there's just less time for that. I went for the exchange here. I figured he would take just to try and simplify things a bit, although it's still very complicated. He probably should take and keep some advantage. He played queen b2, and I hid with my king over on h3, and then knight f7, keeping the knight and maybe regrouping. Well, I'm guarding this square so it can't come into g5, but oh, okay, he wants to force an exchange that way. Knight g5, knight takes g5. Okay, instead he played queen e5, getting the queen back to a central location, and I go ahead and take the knight off. And now we're in a position where it's more or less even. Even though, let's see, I have 4 pawns and he has 5. But in an endgame, it's all about the quality of the pawns and also how quick they are. So how quickly can that a-pawn get to the finish line? And then I have a pawn, obviously, that's closer, but he's in a position to blockade it or stop it with its king. So these are these factors sort of balance out, and it's about an even position. He plays queen e4. Oh, did that queen e4? I play queen e4. Sorry, it was my turn to move there. Just getting my queen to a central position with the idea of making some threats against his king. Maybe I can pick up some material with checks. Also guarding all of my pawns. He plays king f7, which is nice. Keeps me from coming in and invading. And I push up with g4. I just want to stop. Well, this pawn is now protected, so I only have to worry about this pawn, and the king can protect it from g2. He plays a5, getting that going. And I go with queen c2, now with the idea of coming around this way. And with the pawns like this, again, my king can come here and protect my only loose pawn. So queen e5, queen a4. You know, black is keeping his advantage through these maneuvers, but something funny happens near the end. So I keep trying to get my queen in, and now I need to protect the pawn, so king to g2. Plays his king to g7, and I get my queen one step closer, and now, yeah, so that move was it. He had some slight advantage still, but after king g7, it's actually dead even. Of course, he can't take. This is an important in-game tactic. Just getting your pawn. Your pawn is too far away. The square of the pawn is here, and it's black's turn to move, but he can't get inside the square of the pawn, so you're winning there. So always keep your eye out for the idea of supporting a piece with a pawn where the trade will cause you to win. So that's a way of invading. And so he played h6 here, and now I get a check, queen c7, which is what I was looking for. It's still just a draw here, though, king f8, and d6, pushing on the pawn. That's the other key endgame idea with queen and pawn endgames in particular, is to get your queen in a position to support the pawn. And once again, you see that it's all about the quality of the pawns and not the quantity. Black has the extra pawn, but his pawn is not supported by his queen, and it's further away from the touchdown. So there's 2 moves that allow white to continue to, and allow black to continue to play on and hold a draw. So queen b2 check is one of them. Here, let's erase these lines. So queen b2 check, king g3, queen e5 check. He might be going for some kind of perpetual, or queen e5 right away, which stops my pawn from going forward when the queen goes to e5. Instead, he played queen e6, maybe with the idea of coming down and checking. But now my pawn has just advanced too far after d7. I'm actually just completely winning, and he can't stop it. Now, he ran out of time at this point. We were both low on time, and I had sort of lost track of it. So I won immediately here. But I could have won anyway. It looks like I was winning anyway. This threat of d8 queen is just too strong, and the checks run out. He can try queen e2 check, king g3, and then queen e1 check, king f4. And it's interesting, yes, this would have been a little bit tricky. And there are a lot of checks. Queen d2 check, king e5. That's not it. King e5. Queen d4 check. How many checks does he get? King e6. Still winning. Queen takes c4 check. king d6. So I'm finding shelter over here maybe. Queen f4 check, king c6, and now queen takes f3 check, or queen takes c7 check. Say queen f3, king takes b6, queen f6 check, king a7, and finally the checks run out. So how many checks was that? Yeah, only a chess engine could calculate that far ahead. So you just have to sort of play on faith at some point that after d7, your king is going to find shelter eventually. And besides, d7 was kind of the only move at that point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 checks in a row before the checks run out, and I finally get to win the game. We found another check here. It was showing a4 there. I was confused. Even more checks. So black plays queen f1 check, king back to c6, queen f6 check, king to b7. Okay, now the checks have run out. Okay, so that was like 10 checks. Pretty interesting. Okay, so let's go back to the final position here. Right here. He played queen e6. I played d7, and he ran out of time, and the game ended there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.